How's it going, ladies and gentlemen? It's your boy Dak908, aka the Dig Dug himself, and boys, girls, Duggers, Diggers, Moss Hunters, Moss Hunties. Today we're going to be taking a look at Kushbush Ladush. Why is this name Kushbush Ladush? Because I actually cannot pronounce this full-on name. It's like Kushala Daora? Dora the Explorer?
Bruh.
I don't know. Anyway, so Kush is an elder dragon and part of the trio of elder dragons that essentially kind of walk together. I wouldn't say full-on walk together, but you usually see them together, minus that of Monster Hunter World. The trio being Chameleos, Kush, and then Tailstra, however you wish to pronounce that name. Regardless, the thing is, Kush does the icy, windy stuff. Not full-on ice, mostly the windy stuff. The wind is really cold because he tends to be in the icier type of areas. He can summon rainstorms as well. That's kind of his stick. So wind and rain and ice, and that's all him. But he essentially is not an ice monster. He just shoots wind. That's his thing. You can make ice weapons out of him though. So that's one thing a lot of people seem to misunderstand about the monster himself. Not an actual ice dragon, just a really windy dragon who takes most precedence over iced areas. So that's the thing. Now, moving away, let's talk about him for a little bit. He was actually a flagship monster, I believe Monster Hunter DOS, the console joints, the one that came on the PlayStation 2, I believe. I'm also thinking that was the game that came out in Japan only, and then we in the States got Freedom Unite, I believe, or something like that. But regardless, or was it, I don't know, I can't remember. I just remember that he was he was a flagship monster. Regardless, he's here, and the coolest thing about him is his new fandangled ability to, well, I wouldn't say new, but his ability to actually make it to where whenever he's enraged, he has what's known as a black wind. Around his body perpetually, there's wind around Kush's body. Excuse me, I can't talk today, I apologize. But being close to him, you'll be hit with that, oh no, the wind, oh, like you'll not necessarily lament, but you'll cower in fear of the wind that his body protrudes. How to deviate yourself from actually having this real issue is to flash him. If you flash him, he loses the wind. I'm gonna say like the windshield around his body. He'll lose the windshield around his body. Also, if you poison him, he won't go into the black windshield. The black windshield is his most powerful windshield, and the one he actually erects whenever he's full on enraged and he's not having a good day. That windshield you cannot actually like stand against. If you have windproof high, you can stand against the normal windshield. Not a huge issue. You can just kind of, just not be affected by it. But the black one, you will be affected by it. You'll cower like, oh no, it's the wind, and then you'll be pushed on your butt. So it's a hard knockdown, if you will. The thing is, once you are afflicted with it, not necessarily afflicted, but once you're affected by the wind pressure itself, you're unable to do any damage or any actions for about a good 2 to 3 to 4 seconds even. So you're incredibly vulnerable. So I highly recommend when you go to fight Kushbush Ladush, either you or someone or even all of you bring poison weapons. If you are able to poison Kush, he will no longer be able to do the black wind, making it a bit more easier to actually fight him if all you have to necessarily deal with is wind pressure high or wind res high if you have the skill. If you don't have the skill, not a huge issue. Just try and pick your shots because you can't stay real close to his body because you will be afflicted with the wind pressure that his body tends to give off. Now, let's talk about Kush's armors since I've ranted about what he is already. Kush actually has a lot of armors. You are actually able to fight him in low rank, but you have to dig very deep to get it in order to actually get the armors anyway. But his low rank armor gives you heat res and part breaker. Heat res makes it where you're not affected by the hot areas, so it's a precursor to his anti-Tailstra skill because you use Kush armor to fight Tailstra. More on that in a little bit. Moving over to the high rank stuff, you get heat res, handicraft +2, and double poison. Very, very good armor actually to have early on. Not let's say early, he's an elder dragon, so you get him kind of late. But handicraft +2 is a very rare very rare skill to get full on, so it's really useful in this game. Now, EX Kush is the armor that I love the most. Gives guard, chain crit, and airborne. 12 points in the guard to be exact. So you can actually make this a lancing set and use it coupled with, I don't know, maybe let's say some Silverwind lances or some Nargacuga lances because they have high affinity, and that chain crit will make it where you have roughly 100 affinity or very close to it. Now Kush R, again, it's the mixed stuff where you just have particular skills on the armor set that allow you to have many points into it. So for example, his arms have like 8 points into handicraft. So you'll be able to mix his arms with other things to get handicraft +1. But it gives you hot-blooded and double poison again. Actually, I think -20 poison. So So it's ridiculous. To the jeering stuff, however, X gives you Anti-Teostra, which is actually Hot-Blooded, Fire Res plus 20, and Bio-Researcher. 3 skills needed to combat that Teostra handedly. The Hot-Blooded makes it to where you're immune to the hot stuff. It's essentially Fire Res, but it also gives you, well, it's not Fire Res, Heat Res, but it also gives you an attack bonus for being in a hot area. On top of that, I think it's attack up large. On top of that, if you take a hot drink, you get a defense up large bonus as well. So you'll be able to increase your attack and your defense just by being in a hot area and taking a hot drink. Now, the plus 20 Fire Res is, for obvious fire resistance to that of Teostra because he's a fire-based monster. And also Bio-Researcher makes it to where I almost called it Sparkles, but the blast dust doesn't stick to your body and cause you to get afflicted with blast and then potentially receive double damage when hit with an additional blast attack, making to where it's very difficult to approach my man if you are afflicted with the blast stuff. So it gets rid of the blast stuff right away. And also Bio-Research, it gets rid of stench. Well, doesn't get rid of it, but you're immune to stench. So like if you're fighting a Kongala who throws the poop at you, you don't have to worry about getting hit with the poop. So that's really cool. Now, outside of Anti-Teostra, we're looking at Handicraft plus 2, which we spoke was already really dope because it allows you to extend the sharpness of your weapon. For the most part, most weapons only really get to purple with Handicraft plus 2. So that's really cool. Sheath Sharpen, which allows you to sheath your weapon when a monster is enraged, and it'll actually sharpen your weapon when you put your weapon away. Really good for users who actually put the weapon away quite a lot, like greatsword users, longsword users, any particular user who has a very short weapon put away animation. They tend to kind of put the weapon up to find themselves in a more advantaged position and then unsheath their weapon to do the damage. Really useful weapon, again, for those people with the hit and run tactics. Now moving over to Kushala GX, which is my bread and butter. Guard plus 2, airborne, chain crit, and then 5 points to evasion. So what's really cool about this set is you can sit down, hold your ground, and become a guard lancing set, or with that additional quick 5 points to evasion, you can eventually make yourself a nice nifty evasion lancing set. So you can get the best of both worlds, which I feel like is a really good thing to actually have. Last but not least, we're looking at Kush XR, which is 19 bloody points into Hot Freaking Blooded. A skill that only has 10 points to actually activate the skill, so that's a bit overkill. Double Poison again, which I believe is the negative 20 joint, and Handicraft plus 2, which I'm looking at right now, and I didn't put an N, like the letter N on the Handicraft. I'm not going to change it since I spoke on it already. So that's the armor. The armor is pretty good. I mean, I can't lie. The armor's nice. The armor's nice. His weapons, let's talk about that briefly while we have a little bit of time left. His weapons, I'm not going to say they're a bit of a mixed bag. They're essentially all the same. Like, really, they're essentially all the same. The attack is between, its lowest attack is 290, which I believe is his great sword. I believe, don't quote me on that. And his highest, I think, is 320. Now, the thing with his weapons is that they don't have a whole lot of attack. They have lots of elements. They have about 40 or so element per weapon, with about some having 5 affinity. There's, I think, the charge blade with the plus 15 modifier to its defense, and also the sharpness for all those weapons. They tend to have a fair amount of white sharpness. So I mean, they're pretty decent weapons. On the whole, they're about objectively like the second. They're in the top 3 best ice weapons in the game, objectively. So they're pretty solid weapons to have. The armor is really decent as well. Honestly, when it comes down to fighting Kush, since we ran out of... Actually, I talked about fighting Kush, so let's wrap it up again. Let's wrap it up. I forgot I really talked about how to fight Kush earlier. So when you go to fight Kush, remember high grade earplugs isn't... Well, not high grade, excuse me. I can't talk. I apologize, guys. I really do. I am sorry. Windproof high is the skill to have, because you will be able to approach my man and fight him more often than not, even when he has his wind armor on him, unless he has this black wind armor. If he does, remember to have the poison weapons to make it to where when he is poisoned, he can actually perform the black armor. Now, once that's the case, you can just beat his face in. Use flash bombs to actually completely negate the wind armor altogether, and you should find yourself in a relatively decent and advantageous position of fighting Kush relatively unmolested. So with that being said, in a nutshell, Kush is a very interesting monster to hunt, but with the group of people who actually know what they're doing, and if you know the tiny little not necessarily nitpicks, but these tiny little tricks, you should have a very easy time of doing it. And if you'd like to hear more about Kush and how he fights, I have other videos where I talk about Kush, which you can click on the video thing here, and it'll take you to a quick playlist of all the other Kush videos. But with that being said, it's been your boy. Take care.